Your attention, please. Paul and Alex are required to proceed to the gate immediately.
What?
No way.
What is happening here?
This is the last call for the Layovers podcast.
Really?
Come on, man. This is our thing. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
And we made it.
Of course, geeks.
Flight 66 to Copenhagen. It's good to be back.
Oh, I know this voice.
It's good to be back. Oh, I felt good to do. I've never done the intro before.
It's one of these habits we got into, and I still simply did it every single time. We should alternate. Good to have you back,
It's good to be
Alex.
back. Thank you to you and to my brother Will for the last episode, which I honestly had no idea was happening until it popped up on my podcast app. And I was like, what's this? But it's a great episode. Great episode.
It was great to do it with Will. It was planned for a little while, actually, the fact that we would do at some point an episode with him without telling you. But that obviously was a perfect opportunity. And he was so gentle to do it. Like I said, yeah, whenever you want, Paul, let's just do it. And he rolled very easily. You know, I told Will, are you okay doing something like that? I'm just going to throw stuff at you and you'll have to just follow. And he actually was amazing.
He did a great job.
So it was really cool.
I'd forgotten how much he'd done in the aviation world. And he'd done a lot of very different jobs throughout. And a lot of the stories that he told, I'd never heard before. So it was neat to be an audience member on this podcast for a change and not a contributor.
By the way, happy 2018.
Yeah, thank you.
Alex.
You too.
This year, we're going to try to do as many podcasts as we did last year. Last year, we did, I think, 18, which was a slightly above what we did the previous year, which I think is our cruising altitude. I think it's harder for us to do like 25 or like the first year, I think we did 30.
Dude, really?
But it was literally every week.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was almost, it's we cannot do it with our travels, etc. But there might be times when whether me or Alex are traveling too much where one of us will not be present on the podcast. We might actually do that from time to time. We don't always need to be, I mean, of course, one of us would be nice that we are on the podcast.
Yeah, I think it would be a little strange otherwise.
But there might be other opportunities when we'll do that. I mean, of course, we want to have more guests. We say that every single year. I had a few other people lined up to palliate for your absence, but since you're here and actually in London because you're not traveling, it's actually easy to get a hold of you. But I might actually do another one. We'll see. So no travels,
No,
I guess.
I've been on the ground since we last recorded because, like you, committed to taking a little bit of a break between end of last year and the beginning of this year. But then my daughter came several weeks early and surprised us all. So that put the kibosh on any even tentative travel plans I had, which is great. So I'm not going anywhere on an airplane until the end of next month.
Totally different reasons, but probably the same for me. It's already been almost 5 weeks I haven't been in the plane, which is very strange. Our listeners were like, what the hell is happening to you guys?
Yeah.
At the same time, I've been traveling intensely for probably 10 years now. And I said already at the beginning of last year, if you guys want to refer to the first episode of last year, that I would be traveling less than the previous year. And that is exactly what I'm going to do again this year. It's when I say less, it's not like doing only 2 flights, but trying to do better travels. I know that it sounds a bit... people are always a bit envious, and I understand, right? Oh, you guys are traveling all around and it's cool. And I know it's cool. I know we're very lucky to be doing that. But there's some things that are tiring me. So I'm going to do a slightly different type of travels this year because I need some rest, to be honest with you guys.
It is tiring. And as much as we both love it, it is exhausting. And I know we've talked about this ad nauseum in the past, but I think that short haul connecting flights or even short haul point to point is tiring because you don't have a moment to relax. They're not exactly the most comfortable environments to be flying in anyway. It is tiring. And there were record-breaking years in one metric or another for both of us, I think, when we tallied it up at the end of the year. And that's draining. It is draining.
And for me, I've let go of this whole competition thing. They're like, I did that many miles and that many segments and that many flights and that many various aircrafts. And I get it because it's fun, because we love it. But it's been a long time for me already that I'm not really caring if like somebody does 10,000 miles more than I do.
Because there will always be somebody who's doing just an extraordinary amount of travel. And I don't envy
Pilots?
them. I really don't envy them.
No.
It's not a race by any stretch of the imagination.
Hence the more quality travels. Not that we haven't done quality travels in the past, but I'll try to do a little bit more quality and slightly less
and more
quantity.
recreational,
we'll
right? I think that was what you were alluding to. Is more recreational and not, there's an implied obligation when you're traveling for business, and there's, I don't know about you, but there's not resentment's not the right word, but it's less on your terms and therefore harder to actually enjoy to the fullest.
Absolutely. Anyway. That's not because people always think we start complaining here.
Not at all.
Not the point. Just to tell you, we will still have a lot of stories to tell. Plus, there's so many things happening. Actually, you have like a lot of stories that we haven't shared since we last recorded. I did a few, of course, with Will, but I wanted, and, I was also learning actually with Will. I had no idea of his aviation past. Wow, I've learned so many things. We had a lot of, and I'm going to start the show with that. I mean, it's been 8 minutes. We started already. I'm going to start the show with shout outs because you had a lot of comments, not only for the episode with Will, but also past. And I want to, thank, because people take the time to send us messages, info, reviews, etc. And I think it's really nice. And again, this number is decreasing, which is really great. But that also means, and I'm really sorry, and I know I've already said that in other episodes, that I can't always mention everyone, because otherwise we would spend like 45 minutes just mentioning everyone. But so please forgive me if I don't. If you really think that you deserve to be mentioned, just harass me until I do. But I'm going to dedicate a few minutes here to do a few shout outs. We talked last episode, of course, about Boston, the airport that you had also covered with me, Alex. There's an interesting exchange between Will, actually, and at Some Talk of Me, Pramod on Twitter. I'll just put the link on the show notes. But it's really interesting how your brother and at Some Talk of Me are discussing about, the quality of the gates and the quality of the boarding experience at Virgin/Alaska, and what the B terminal is better than the C, etc. So I haven't been to Boston in forever, but if you want to learn slightly more information that we said, I'll
there was some great banter and back and forth there. And I think Boston is one of those airports that a lot of people have very different experiences in. So that was an interesting little chit chat that was going on. Richard
Oakley from South Africa, whom you had on your episode of Cape Town of Attaché, when I tweeted the fact that there was like a new episode, new year, new host. Of course, it was a cheeky way to say that Will was co-hosting with me. He said, I clicked on this fully expecting to be Kobus. Kobus, you're going to be on the show at some point.
Definitely, because Kobus has got some amazing destinations under his belt last year.
On Facebook, there were a lot of comments about Will's episode, so I want to mention them because, Will, you were really great. Vincent says, great episode, guys. Loved Will's stories. Ed Parsons, another great show. Happy New Year, guys. Thank you. And he says, with my eye closed, I could not tell the difference between Will and Alex, which actually was super fun. I replied that we could have the third brother, Andrew. We'll talk about him in a bit. And to which your brother Will said, he sounds like Hugh Grant, so I think you'll be good there. To which Wayne Sula answered, he looks like James Bond. So, man, you know what? Andrew, we need you to be there because, neither Alex and Will, they're both very handsome, but they don't look like James Bond. They don't sound like Hugh Grant. We should do the third brother at some point. There was Peter Johnson, another loyal listener. He said the episode were worth alone for the story of the rough sleeper, at Charles de Gaulle, who ended up stealing the money by almost accident.
Such a good story.
Regarding our episode 64, Alex, the one at St. Petersburg, I have Murad on Facebook who says, I believe the high-wing aircraft you saw in St. Petersburg was an Antonov 148, the Rossi Airlines, so the government-owned. Was it that the one?
Yes, it was. And I love that airplane. We've talked about it in the past, but I just think it's such an elegant airplane. Not many people use it. It looks like a two-engined 146 Avroliner. Mm-hmm. It's very, very cool. There's only been 39 of them made, so there aren't many opportunities to experience them. Air Koryo have a couple of them, so next time we go to North Korea. But the biggest owner, as he said, is the Russian government. So again, limited opportunity to experience that airplane.
Well, you never know. He also adds great episode as always. Thank you, Murad. That's very kind. 2017 was the year of fake news. There was this fun banter between you and Kendall about smart luggages, and you answered like it was so funny. No, I was being vehemently against stupid things, idiotic, dangerous, and pointless. So, Alex, CES just happened in Vegas. This is this big consumer electronics show with all the hardware that exists, that shouldn't even exist, actually appears there. And there was the 90 Fun Puppy one, which is a smart luggage that has sensors and follows you around. Of course, that's stupid. It's a Chinese company, I think. They went with like press releases and, very sleek videos, etc. And then when you read the reports, you see that the luggage would fail most of the time, not follow you, but follow someone else, or stop following you altogether. I don't see the point of having a luggage follow you.
No, me neither.
To be very,
Me neither. Can we just go to normal people luggage again? Like I'm done with the smart luggage. I don't. Most sensible airlines are banning them. It's over. It's over.
At Joel Candia, and again, I'm sorry always if I mispronounce your names, guys, just send me back a tweet, message, etc. to tell me how to actually pronounce your names, said that the Qantas domestic business class lounge at Perth does indeed serve pizza. Yeah, you remember I made a call. I need to know who serves pizza. We didn't receive actually anyone telling us which European lounge serves actual pizza. The hunt is still on. If anyone knows which lounge in Europe serves pizza, I know that, Australians do it better, clearly. Joel just told us. But I don't know where the pizza is in Europe.
This is going to become a global quest to find the lounge that serves pizza.
Joel also said that please do a crossover episode on airplane food between Mastication Nation layovers. Yeah, as you heard in the last episode, we'll probably do it at some
definitely.
point. Both Alex and I have like a billion, we have like cupboard full of airplane menus. We could just read the menus. That would be a full episode, just telling the nice. There was also, it dates a little bit back, John had completely effed up his last name, and he came back to me. I think I gave him the shout out in episode 64, 63, I don't remember. His name is Nolavika, so John Nolavika. He has a YouTube channel. He actually puts videos of his travels in planes. I'll put the link in the show note for this episode, John. He's flown actually a lot of US airlines, including, that could be interesting for you, Alex, including American Airlines, because you were telling me the other day that you were thinking American Airlines. He went to Tokyo with American Airlines, so almost 14 hours flight. I don't know where he was actually leaving from. Maybe in Chicago? I don't know. He actually enjoyed it. He put even a picture of the seat, probably herringbone, because your face is close to the window.
Yeah.
It seems
does look good. It does look good. There's so many great new business class product and premium class products coming out that I'm now glancing towards airlines that aren't BA just because I'm being tempted by the hard product a little bit more. I'm very confident that I'm not going to requalify for gold on BA this year. So that's really all it takes for me is just to start looking at other airline products.
He's flown United quite a few times, and he mentions the 77W, so the 300ER. He says it's fantastic, actually, the Dreamliner as well, and even the 772 being retrofitted. I was not harsh. I was very neutral on United last time. I'm probably going to try at some point find them again. If I do, I would like to try their newest products. And like I am on Star Alliance, so why not? So he's actually seems to be kind of positive about them. So, I'll give them a chance. Why not? On Facebook, James Hill says he absolutely loves our podcast. He's been binge listening at work for the last few weeks.
That's, again, glutton for punishment.
And he said, you guys turned me to an AV geek. I'm like, I don't know if you want to be responsible for that, James, but he says, and that's the point of here mentioning him besides being so kind with us, he says that there was an episode where we had discussed our favorite websites, aviation websites. I know it was at the very beginning. To be honest, James, I don't remember which one it was, but anyways, that was 2.5 years ago probably. What we're going to do, not in this one, but maybe in the next or the following one with Alex, we're going to simply dedicate 5 minutes to say what are currently the websites that we are looking at, where we get the news, but also simply what we enjoy.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea because a lot has changed in that 2.5 years.
And he can certify that he also had pizza in Brisbane Qantas business lounge.
Australians
Again, the Australians
are taking
do it better.
care of pizza business.
By the way, I don't know about you, Alex, but it seems to me that there's a lot of aviation-related websites that are based in Australia.
Yes.
A lot.
And some very good ones as well that are that seem to get a lot of scoops, especially on product.
We should find someone from Australia actually to guest invite. Maybe like a good 20% of the news I'm getting and I'm reading are on .au, so Australian websites.
Yeah, I think for a country that is so huge and with a dispersed populace, they rely so much on air travel that having good sources of information makes sense.
Another one who binged on our episode is Eric Hoffman at The Husband in Two on Twitter, also a very loyal listener. Great to have you back. Looking forward for more in 2018. Thank you very much, Eric. He says we both need to come down to Girona, where he lives now, to eat great food, drink amazing wine, and AV Geek out. Yes, of course, we will do that. 2, 3, or 4, I don't remember, podcast reviews on iTunes. Thank you so much, guys, for actually doing that. It's always very, very kind. The first one from, these names are always really hard to read out. B.D. Caney from Hungary. Just found your podcast not long ago, but already hooked. Brilliant, entertaining. Bravo. Thank you. 5 stars. I mean, they're all 5 stars. I'm not going to even say 5 stars. Thank you so much, guys, for being so kind with us. Chip Chick from the US. A fun podcast that will appeal to any airplane geek. I don't get to fly nearly as often as I would like, but at least Paul and Alex let the listener experience their travels vicariously. Thanks, guys. Well, thank you. From Australia, Rusted. Brilliant. We love this podcast. Keep the good work, guys. And the last one from Canada. R3 Act 1990 must listen podcast. Paul and Alex do a fantastic job making the podcast interesting and fun. I listen to it every day on my drive to from work. Again, every day. My God, are you ready? There was also someone, and I don't have it in front of me, that mentioned that he or she was listening to the episode to which airport he or she was going to that day every single time he or she was traveling. Traveling to Copenhagen, he would be listening to this show, or traveling to, I don't know, Charles de Gaulle, he would have no episode to listen to because we haven't done it yet.
Can't do it.
Last but not least, Michael Leppa. I'm not sure I pronounced your name correctly. At Roll of Funk on Twitter. I've known him for quite a long time, actually. Michael, did you used to live in Japan, or are you always traveling very often? Because I remember you from my Japan days. He was tweeting us that he was flying with Finnair to Tokyo with a backlog of episodes of layovers. He was listening to us the whole flight. And it seems that, and it wasn't the case until recently, that if you fly Finnair to Tokyo now, there's a 350. Because before they had the older aircraft, I think 330, which seats were not as good. So that's very good news. I might actually do that my next trip to Japan. And he went for 3 weeks of powder skiing in Hokkaido. My God.
It looks
so
beautiful.
Lucky.
I have a friend who's doing that right now. The pictures are just spectacular.
On the way back, I guess he was at Asahikawa Airport. I've been to that airport. It's also in the north. There's also a flight simulator, a 737 simulator.
That was a great picture as well.
Japan really has a lot going on for it, right? In terms of aviation every time. Anyway, Australia, since we are in Australia, there was this interesting article on The Guardian. The Guardian, actually, the website is completely
It's great. And the paper itself. They've gone to tabloid style.
Oh, I haven't seen, oh my God. I haven't seen the paper yet. I've only seen the app and the website. There was this article that was quite interesting about the fuel efficiency. I think the report was made mostly for airlines that do travel over the Pacific. So it's very Oceania and Asia based. The most fuel efficient airline is Hainan, followed by ANA and Air New Zealand. The worst, and by far actually, is Qantas. And the second worst is Korean Air. And obviously you're wondering if it's not simply because of the fleet they have.
Well, it kind of has to be, doesn't it? Because there's no other. There's no other. Well, if they're going to be judging it on ground handling efficiency and all that, it has to be how modern your fleet is, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And then the engine choices, and I suppose further down the list or of things that will make an impact on that is routing choices, flight time.
Hainan, for instance, has I think 80% of its flights are on Dreamliners. So clearly they have like very recent
advantage.
Yeah. And I guess most of the airlines at the top of the list are such airlines. But interestingly, Qantas not only has 747s and 380s, 4-engine aircraft, so that's a lot of fuel, but also they're filling just 74% of the seats. So if you count per passenger, they also have that list. They're actually really bad. Where they have other airlines, I think like ANA have very good load factors. Hence, for the actual fuel they're using, the flights are full.
I'm glad somebody's done that. I'm glad somebody's looked at that, because we tend to push that to the back of our mind because it's a fairly unpleasant thing to think about. But it is part of our responsibility as travelers to be mindful of the impact that we are having on the environment and to do what we can to mitigate and offset that. Although I think as consumers, our opportunities and options to address that are reasonably limited. It has to be in the hands of the airlines, the engine manufacturer, the airframe manufacturer. But I think it's important to be cognizant of it at the very least.
Passenger load, aircraft efficiency, seating density. We like it or not, but more seats, obviously, it's more efficient at the end of the day, right? But also cargo. The more cargo, less cargo, because clearly that also influences the kind of the efficiency. There's a few other examples that are interesting about specific routes. So the most efficient airline from LA to Sydney is Delta. The second is Virgin Australia, Qantas is last again. Another example is LA to Tokyo, which I've actually done. The most efficient airline is United. So United doesn't have everything bad, but I think they're now Dreamliners. Yeah, I think actually our friend Glue Code has done a Dreamliner that route. Glue Code, correct me. Or maybe was it for San Francisco you did? And the worst is Singapore, which is the one I took. Why? 380, 4 engines, probably, sadly.
And actually thinking about it, Qantas still operate quite a few. They operate A380s and 747s still on those West Coast, U.S. West Coast routes.
And like you said, we have a limited thing we can actually do ourselves. We have to be mindful of that. We talked a little bit when we had Tony Tyler about, the environmental issues of flying. 2.5% of the global carbon emission or something are from
that sounds
flying.
About right.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know whether that's my open question. Is it actually, besides making you feel good, is it actually useful to do, these
offsetting?
Yeah, the offsets. Thank you.
I don't know. I think it's just assuaging your own guilt, whether it's actually making a difference to our carbon emissions and the effect they're having. I don't know. The cynic in me says probably not.
Since we were in the US, we just flew from Sydney to the US to LA. A few news about the US. By the way, I'm going to try to commit this year having slightly less front loading of British news, because sometimes in episodes, because we live here, we have a tendency to talk about BA for like 45 minutes. So let's try to be a little bit more equal opportunity for all the airlines in this world. The US first, because we always try to follow up to news. The Supreme Court has authorized the ban that the Trump administration has done. It's not over. Doesn't mean that the ban will last forever, but for the moment, the ban is actually up. Trump has actually also said that for the moment, they're not going to retaliate against the ME3. They still say, of course, there's subsidies, and they still have a lot of pressure for the U.S. airlines. But they said that for the moment, they're not going to do anything. But they warned that if not sufficient steps are being taken in the future, they might do something about it. They're not going to either ban or add like some tariffs or etc. to the Middle Eastern carriers, which is, good news for competition.
It is good news for competition. And I think that the Airbus, Bombardier, Boeing, Delta shenanigans that have been going on do illustrate the point that the U.S. government is willing to act. That this isn't just something where they cannot or will not do something. I think their hands are a little bit more tied on this because the argument is so much weaker than the Bombardier, Boeing stuff. But they will do it, and they've proven that. And I think that gave everybody a little bit of pause for thought. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this year.
Yeah, actually, since you mentioned Delta, let's go there. But Delta, they were supposed to buy this C-Series Bombardier, who's been just taken over by Airbus, as you just said. And the problem is a date thing. I think the first delivery of the C-Series to Delta is still supposed to happen in Q1. So until this March. The problem is, when will the tariff be annulled by the fact that Airbus will build the planes in Alabama within the US? So they're doing a trick. They're saying, okay, if they get the airplane in the C-Series too early, Delta will have to probably pay the tariffs, which they obviously don't want to, but they committed to the aircraft, so they want the aircraft. So what they're going to do, they said, we're going to actually give them to Aeromexico. Delta owns 49% of Aeromexico. So they're basically going to do a little trick when the C series that they want, they will wait until the tariff situation is actually solved. So Airbus builds the things in the US. In the meanwhile, give the aircrafts to Aeromexico. Will they swap them later on? Are they use wet leases? I have no idea, but that's apparently what's going to happen. And since they still need planes, they just announced that they're going to buy 100 A321 Neos with an option of further 100. So Delta here is basically saying, hey, you know what, guys in the US, you were trying to screw us, so we're going to give it to Aeromexico. And by the way, here, we're going to buy 200 more Airbus just to tell you what we think. Jeez. That's how it looks like.
It's such a strange relationship between the US airlines and the US or the manufacturers in general, because Delta have been one of the strongest voices in anti-ME3, anti-competition circles, if you will. They were the ones that did all the nonsense. When was it Qatar that had the problems landing at Delta, and Delta wouldn't give them a gate and all of that? And yet they're being the most sort of proactive, if you will, and middle finger to the big boys for the manufacturer side. Whose side are they on? Or are they just siding for themselves? I don't know. It's very strange.
At the end of the day, I mean, you don't have that many manufacturers you can buy from, right? So especially now that it's been consolidation, like I'll go to the next one in the next piece of news, meaning that I also understand that the Delta would still have to have a choice between Boeing and Airbus. And it's not here making a flag choice, like I'm pro-US or anti-US or pro-European, anti-European. It's just like, when you want to buy a car, you want to have a choice between brands. And to be fair to Delta here, there's no actual real competition to the 321. That's why it's so successful even in the US, because the 737-900 is still smaller. This is where actually Boeing is thinking of creating that new plane that we don't know the name yet, 797. The A321 is a success because it's almost on a league of its own. That's why it's so successful including the US. I'm sure that if Boeing were to have something similar, US Airlines would gladly actually buy it.
It's the closest thing, I think, to the 757 without being the 757.
Right.
That's the plane that I think everybody's trying to figure out, is there a market here, while at the same time saying, we really do love the 757 and we miss it now that it's gone. It was just not, it's a very old design and it's not as efficient as it could be. But I think we talk about this every time one of the big air shows comes around and order books start to fill up, that the A320 Neo and A321 series have proven time and time again to be incredibly popular, reliable airplanes. And you can see why people continue to buy them. And now they're, like I said, being manufactured in the US. That just makes the deal even sweeter for US airlines to jump on board. I don't think it's putting huge amounts of pressure on Boeing, because the 737 series are also incredibly good, incredibly reliable, and incredibly popular as well. So it's only good for the consumer that this is happening, that this popular narrow body competition, and this probably a better word than battle, is going on between the two big manufacturers.
So Delta, it was 75 C-Series that they had ordered. So Delta is doing this trick. Boeing, they are acquisition talks of Embraer now. So is it a good thing or bad thing? It was nice to have, a Bombardier and an Embraer and, Mitsubishi and Sukhoi and other smaller, and of course the Chinese Comac, the smaller types of manufacturers. But it seems that this whole thing has created yet another round of consolidation. It's not done. Maybe it won't happen because Brazil is quite a protectionist when it comes to its markets and jobs, etc. But if Boeing were to acquire Embraer,
I am a little worried about this. I think mainly because I have a soft spot for Embraer. I don't know why. I love their airplanes. I think the E-Jets are just fantastic little airplanes.
I agree.
I think it would be sad to lose another manufacturer, like you say. There are smaller Mitsubishi hasn't really, nothing's in service yet.
Yeah. No.
Bombardier is great, but they're owned by Airbus now, or at least the C series is. The others are they're tiny. It would be such a shame. Embraer was the little aircraft manufacturer that could, and a lot of people like those airplanes. And I hope this doesn't go through, just purely for personal reasons.
Especially because you never know if the actual aircraft will survive. Of course, the brand you don't know, but the plane themselves, it's really hard to. I mean, Boeing had what was it, 717 at some point, but that's it. It would make sense for them if you think about having a broad offer for airlines to have a smaller capacity aircrafts as well. But yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings as well. I don't want all the aircraft to look exactly the same, for crying out loud.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You want a little bit of variety and innovation. I think competition does breed innovation as well. That's why we've had all these leaps in manufacturing, not just between Airbus and Boeing, but because of pressure from the other manufacturers.
Talking about different type of aircraft, the one that always stand out and people seem to love to fly is the 380. The 380, I didn't mention that in the last episode with Will. It's almost dying. It's still not dead, but we're very close. Airbus is very, very, very close to shut the program completely down.
Airbus have come out... John Leahy has come out and said that they will shut the program if Emirates does not order more aircraft. It's not conjecture or speculation. He's said that.
Emmanuel Macron, the French president, Airbus being part French, I think he just came back, was in China for a state visit. And part of his agenda was to try to sell the 380 to the Chinese. And it's potentially true that some Chinese could be doing something with that plane, but I don't see it happening either.
It speaks volumes that in 2017, the A380 order book netted an order total of 2 cancellations. That was it. I think that really shows it. And their commercial aircraft president, Fabrice Bregier, said that his job in 2017 was to start winding down the production of the A380. So they're ready for it. They're prepping. They've said they won't make any white-tail airplanes, making airframes without a potential buyer. They're not going to do anything until they've got orders on the books. We're talking less than 10 a year for the next 3 years, and it's maybe down to 6 after 2019 coming off the line, which is then obviously reaches a point of inefficiency, and it's in no one's interest to keep it going. But I like the A380. This will be sad. It's not as graceful and elegant and important, frankly, as the 747, but it's not a plane I have any issue with.
It's really proven popular for people that don't fly as much. And I had friends over for Christmas, for instance. They keep talking about 380, as in it's like, I've been for the first time at 380. There's something about it. It's coming to our point earlier. It's a different looking aircraft. It's like, I know it's a 380. I know it's different. I know it's special. So I want to be in it.
And it's a monstrous airplane. And I think that captured a lot of people's imaginations. It was on a scale that we'd never seen before, which allowed passenger experience innovation to happen on a level that we'd never seen before. So it is an important airplane. It is a good airplane. But in a world where we're looking at efficiency, it just doesn't make sense. The numbers just don't add up.
Talking about Airbus is going through like a lot of shakeups. We had to mention a few in the past, but this one is the big one because like very basically everybody is leaving. So you just mentioned Fabrice Bregier is leaving, kind of lost a power battle with Chief Executive Tom Enders. But Tom Enders himself is actually being in a big this whole corruption thing. The corruption is more on the, Airbus is a big group. So it's more on the defense side, less on the commercial, airliner. But still, it's the same group, right? And these are the same people. So we have Leary departing, Bregier departing. Tom Enders is actually not as spotless as he might have claimed in the past. Just for the sake of saying it, the crux where the ground zero of this corruption scandal apparently is in Paris. It was a small sales division for arms, I think, so for defense purposes. It was actually called, and I'm not kidding, and pardon my French, the Bullshit Castle. Very kind of shaky deals going on. There's even a sentence, a quote, I don't know who said actually the quote is, if you put Mother Teresa in a neighborhood with rampant drug use, she wouldn't remain a saint for long either. And that's apparently... It's really shaking up the grounds of Airbus. So the door is open to not the entire executive team, but we have a lot of the big guys have left. These were the guys that actually put the 380 into place. So maybe a new management, a new CEOs, etc., when they will arrive, they might not have the the emotional link to 380. They will just look at it and say, no one's buying it. Let's
They
kill
can
it.
make a business
right?
decision.
I don't know.
I mean they've got the 350, but is that...
Yeah, I was about to say the 350 is super successful. That's their hit with the 321 and 320.
But is it the platform that they need to expand and fill the void? Because the 777 has been around for since 1989 as a concept and as a platform, and has been iterated on and developed, and is obviously a very, very popular program, and they're continuing to iterate on it. The 350 is brand new. Is it the right thing for them to say the A380 goes away and we backfill with the 350 and what else?
I don't know.
What else? So it's an interesting time for Airbus.
I agree with you.
And in our, this isn't a job, but in our job, it does make for some interesting months and years ahead.
I think that Boeing is better equipped, as in future-proof, not only because of the bet they've done with both the 777 back then and the Dreamliner currently, but they seem to have a broader offering for airlines, because you're right, there's the 350, the 320 and 21s. The 330, they will do a neo, but airlines are not huge fans of neos, because they're basically saying, hey, you guys, you're putting a new engine to an existing platform, but the reason the Dreamliner or the 350, by the way, are so successful is because they were started from scratch and said, okay, we'll have like more fuel efficiency, different design, different materials. So you cannot just put something and it would sell.
No, it's a little bit lipstick on a pig, isn't it? You're just extending the useful life of a program perhaps by 10 years, as opposed to going from, 767 to a Dreamliner, where you're starting from scratch. I mean, which is an investment that is orders of magnitude larger than a Neo. So you can see why people maybe even hedge a little bit of time to say, okay, well, let's do a Neo because there are opportunities to get 25% fuel increase on the airframe while we start a program office to develop what the next 25 years look like.
The 350 at the beginning was supposed to be a 330 Neo, and airlines were like, what the hell are you talking about? We want to actually have a new aircraft. And that forced the hand of Airbus to actually create a new airframe, which delayed the program, but it actually now proves to be successful. But like you say, I don't know, we don't have any into Airbus. I mean, in the rumor world, we don't know if Airbus is actually planning anything else. They probably at very early stages, but even if they were to start it with they had started 2 years ago, it won't happen before a decade that the new aircraft, whatever that is, 370, whatever the name you want to, will ever happen. We don't know. We simply don't know.
I think the funny thing is that it feels like Boeing and Airbus are waiting to see what the other does. It's why it's why Boeing haven't committed on a 757, 767 replacement or enhancement program as well. So it's just someone's going to have to blink first and come up with something. And I think it'll have to be Airbus.
Yeah, I think so too. I think although Airbus is very successful with the few aircrafts they have, they are lacking something compared to Boeing. Boeing still has an edge to me. And here I'm not doing, I'm Swiss. I'm going to be neutral. I do not prefer one or the other. I like to have competition, but if I put myself as an outside in looking into the thing, I think Boeing has an edge overall. And again, I love the 321 and I love the 350, especially the 350. I think that's a smash hit. I cannot wait to see what the 777X will actually look like, because that's going to be the answer basically of Boeing to the 350.
And also, I agree. I'm excited for that to take a little bit more shape than a place on one of those diagrams that they rolled out at, I think it was Paris this year.
Yeah. Another casualty of that Airbus corruption scandal, which is not over yet, is the CTO, Paul Aremco. He's the Google guy that Airbus did hire to instill a new type of mentality within Airbus, a more like, fail fast, fail forward, Silicon Valley type of stuff. And he's the reason why there was these flying taxis, the VTOL, the flying buses and all the stuff that the Airbus was trying it, that people like you and me, Alex, were looking at and saying, what the hell is Airbus doing? Some of it actually might stick, but he was the reason he left. Of course, officially he didn't leave because of the corruption, but I do have a hunch that because all the scandals and the power struggles at the top, and for the moment, at least Germany and France are kind of hands off and not really. I mean, I'm sure that behind the scenes, they're actually trying to put their own guys in there. But I believe, and that's my own personal belief, that he might have said, you know what, this doesn't sound good. And probably when you look at, even in the startup world, startups like Boom and others who are doing really cool stuff that might maybe one day take off. We might have a supersonic aircraft, maybe not from Boom, but these technology be used by Boeing and others. I understand why you would actually leave Airbus.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, would you want to be the head of innovation in a company that takes 15 years to see from idea to seeing the light of day, at least? I mean, that's no criticism of Airbus. That's just the industry, right? I mean, it takes that long and that much money. So coming up with a great idea and a fail fast, iterate quickly mentality, they don't jive together. There must be an unbelievably frustrating role.
Plus at a big company, plus at Airbus, especially because of these kind of, it's very still politicized. Way less than it used to be, but you still have to deal with, I mean, just look at the management structure. You have some people from Germany, some people from France, and it's one time is the CEO of one country or the other. And the Brits are kind of not there, but there. And there's some Spaniards as well. I mean, you have to kind of content a bit everyone because, of course, they jump-started the program back in the days. The state, by the way, do not have majority stakes or anything, because I hear sometimes that people say, oh, Airbus is a state-owned company. No, it's not anymore. But yeah, the state still has some links. And whilst there's no revolving door, you sometimes kind of feel, especially in the defense industry, because defense is much more, sensitive industry, you kind of feel, since Airbus does a bit of everything, that some of the people might just be friends of politicians coming in. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that he must be coming from Google, or even you and me were not as smart as this Paul Aramco, I'm sure. But if we were to go there, some of the stuff would be highly frustrating because you have to deal with the politics of it all as well.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that doesn't really jive with an entrepreneurial attitude or environment. There's, I can understand it's frustrating. Although, do they still have their Silicon Valley incubator going, Airbus?
Yeah, the A3, A Cube, whatever the name is. I think that's the venture fund. So that's the fund. Not sure if that's the incubator, accelerator / whatever the name you want to put the buzzword is nowadays. I think so too, but I don't know whether or not the fact that the CTO Paul Aramco left, will that impact this? To be honest, I have no idea. I had a discussion, let's mention it here. I was interviewed a big time. We had a conversation with Chris Grow. He is an airport planner and runs the podcast called Runway.vc. If you're interested, guys, into not listening to me, because
great conversation.
I'm not, thank you, Chris. One thing he does really well is each episode he interviews a stakeholder from the industry. How do we disrupt the airline industry? It's really a great podcast to listen to. Runway.vc, that's the actual URL, but I'll put the link in the show notes. And we talked a little bit about that with Chris, and the goal is to have Chris as a guest on this show, because not only of all the knowledge he has throughout his work and also through these Runway.vc, because it's more than just a podcast, it's an innovation platform, but also simply because as an airport planner, I want to hear what is an airport planner? Exactly. So I just want to make one caveat. I felt listening to it, because when I talk, when I'm passionate, I talk too fast, obviously, like guys, but also I felt that I was probably defending Airbus too much. I mean, not defending. It felt like I was defending Airbus, which, like you heard in the past 10 minutes, is not what I'm trying to do. I think there are fair points on each side. There's no perfect way to innovate, or there's no, like, on one side the subsidies and another one there's not. So just please have that in mind. Don't badger me as being an anti-Boeing, because it's really not the case. That's how I felt when I listened to it. Anyway, listen to the episode.
I think anybody that listens to this podcast knows you're certainly not anti-Boeing or even biased in one direction or the other.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that you
said that.
It's true. US Boeing, no more 747s in, passenger 747s in the skies in the US. I mean, for US airlines, a bit sad.
Yeah, a bit sad is an understatement.
So it was the last ever flight. Sorry to interrupt you, Alex. The last ever flight was Delta. Delta flew from Atlanta to Marana in Arizona, which basically is a graveyard where they're going to basically cannibalize the jetliner. You don't want to see the pictures because it's horrifying. It's a 3.5, I think, hour journey from Atlanta. It was really nice because they did this special flight. So they invited, of course, journalists, but also employees from Delta. People were signing the aircraft outside, under the wheel, but also inside. So the business class cabin, or first class as they call it in the US. Everybody signed on all the walls. So you can see the airplane full of graffitis, but kind graffitis. They even had a wedding on board. So there was a Delta pilot and a flight attendant who tied the knot on that flight, that's really cute. There's a video on YouTube about that. So that's, again, nice send-off, but what a sad day to not have this.
It is. And I think that a lot of those Delta 747s were ex-Northwest.
Actually, you know what? I went back to my flight history. I was flying Northwest 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. And then I started flying Delta when it was acquired by Delta. Sadly, back then I was not as good as now as writing down the airplane registrations, but I still went to say, was that last aircraft one of those I had flown? I will never know because I'm missing a few, but I might have been one of the ones I flew, and it's sad. I had one of your listeners as well, Mathieu Guillaume-Duluc at 2MGD on Twitter, who's asking us, are there still operators of 747 passengers in South or North America? I don't think there are any. I think the only shot is really to take BA, Lufthansa, Korean Air, maybe Air China, because I don't think in South America as well there's any 747 operators left. At least US for sure, no. In Canada, I don't think Air Canada has any. So I think it's you really have to rely on foreigners.
Yeah, I don't think... Thank God for British Airways is all I'm going to say, because we don't have to worry about that problem for a long time. I'm going to Florida in May. I'm going on a 747 for at least one of the legs. They have lots of 747s and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So that makes me happy.
I think they said they were thinking of retiring them in 2024, not before. So we have
some time.
6 years.
But it will be strange. You'll still see 747s at American airports, but just not in an American Airlines '(S) livery, which I think will be strange.
Very strange, especially because for me, the 747 was first and foremost a plane I remember seeing a lot in the US when I was a kid, and I flew in the US. Of course, since then, BA, I don't know, JAL and ANA and Cathay and Thai, and I flew like a lot of 747s with other airlines. But for me, because my first ever witnessing of a 747 when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old was in the US. I think it was in Chicago and Miami. I flew one and I was like, that's the plane that I always linked with, it's big, it's American. And I said, that's really sad.
Yeah, it is sad. And actually, having a look, there really aren't that many airlines that have 747 passenger planes anymore. I think it's a lot less than you think. I'm starting to freak out a little bit.
Which is why I mentioned Lufthansa and Korean Air, and I think Air China, because these three have the 8i, so the newer version.
Yes.
Even if you only have a very few, but at least you're pretty sure that those will last for 20 years before they're retired. So even though they're not, and I said that in an episode, I don't remember which one it was because I don't have it in front of me, but I flew the Korean Air 747 8i twice. It was a really neat experience. It's very close to a 744 experience. The sound is slightly more damper, of course, because it's slightly newer, but I mean, it's fantastic. So guys, yeah, if you want to fly 747, for sure, Lufthansa, Korean Air, and I think it's Air China.
Air China and China Airlines both have them.
Oh, both. Oh, wow. See? Well, there you go. Thank you, Alex. So these are your best shots. And BA, of course, for the next 6-7 years.
Few more, yeah. But yeah, just for the few more years.
Qantas, the rumor is that Qantas is looking at ditching them. The first piece of news we discussed here about their fuel efficiency, etc., they might be looking into having more Dreamliners 350s for very long routes, avoiding to commute through Singapore now and Dubai. So I'm not sure the 747s will last so long at Qantas either. Yeah, I see Alex on the camera in front of me. He's having cold sweats.
I need to get some more 747 models. I don't have nearly enough.
I'll find you some actually the next time I might do Korean Air soon again, which is against my miles thing because I don't do SkyTeam, but I really want to fly it again. I might actually do it, and then I'll make sure to. I should fly Asiana, but Asiana is a 380, which I like, as we said. But 747
hard to beat. And of course, Virgin Atlantic
Yeah.
still have 8, and they're going to be around for another 2 years. So
yeah, I've never flown Virgin Atlantic actually. I was thinking about that when your brother was on last week. I never flown them. Talking about Lufthansa, talking about respecting the past. Lufthansa has restored a few historic aircrafts, and that's really, really cool. They restored a Junkers 52. It's a very old aircraft. I think it was in operations in the 30s and the 40s, but you can experience that. That's the thing that I love about this thing by Lufthansa. Not only they restore them, but you and me, we can book experience flights.
So cool.
It's not just for a museum. It's like you can go, and they try as much to replicate what was the experience of flying for that example
Lufthansa
back in the 30s,
always
40s.
been really good at this.
The Junkers has been around for a few years. I don't remember when they finished it, 20 or 30 years, I think. But they are rebuilding a Lockheed Super Constellation, the same one that was in their fleet in the 50s. They bought in auction, I think, 3 or 4 of them to make sure they have enough pieces to being able to do one that is exactly the version they used to have. And they mentioned that they will have a digital cockpit, state of the art, latest technology. But for the rest, it's going to be the same. That's amazing.
That is amazing. And again, kudos to them for going through the effort and expense and time to do this. I think this is important, and it's so often overlooked, especially by airlines. It's usually falling into the hands of hobbyists and retired airline mechanics to take these airplanes and preserve them in a museum environment. To see an airline really step up and take ownership of their heritage is hugely refreshing and I think very important.
I agree. They've also, talking about museum, and I found that pretty staggering actually. They bought back a 732, so 737 200 that had been hijacked in the 70s. Most of the people were liberated. I think the pilot had been sadly killed during the hijacking. The 70s,
Yeah.
was quite the 60s and 70s, there were quite a few hijacks. Yeah, exactly. It was I think in Somalia, in Africa. So that aircraft had been then, of course, I think sold to other airlines, and it finished its life in Brazil, I think in 2007 or 8. The government, the German government, that's not Lufthansa, they bought it back in 2017, so last year, and they asked Lufthansa Technik, which is the technical arm from Lufthansa, to disassemble it, to put it in an Antonov, to fly it back to Germany, then to put it back together, and to actually put it in a museum, because of course, out of respect for the history of Germany and of Lufthansa. It's going to be at the Dornier Museum in Friedrichshafen. I mean, talking about heritage, I think it's a very
I do too. I do. I'm so glad that they're doing this. I can't wait to experience the various components of this project. In fact, it would be great to learn a little bit more about why they feel the need to do it, because they are outliers. Not many other airlines do this. I mean, Cathay acquired and preserved their 2 first airplanes. One is out front of their headquarters. One is in the Hong Kong Science Museum, the DC-3s. Yeah. But not many other airlines are as good at this as Lufthansa.
I agree, and especially flying them. The 2 are early example. The Constellation, I will clearly try to book. Yeah.
I love that airplane so much. It's such a beautiful airplane.
Talking about iconic 747 and that Constellation, these are amazing aircrafts. Lufthansa, I don't fly them long haul. You guys know that because again, I know I'm very lucky to be flying very often in business class, and I don't find their business class it is up to what it should be. Especially the rest of the experience of Lufthansa for me is top notch. Their lounges are very good. The food is excellent. I mean, people might prefer, of course, foods from Cathay Pacific, Singapore, or Emirates, whatever. But I mean, it's all the components that they are. I think the seat on in business class is bad. Pearson's Lloyd, we're based actually in London, who had designed that seats. I've come out with the next design for Lufthansa that's going to be installed in the 777-9 that it's coming in 2 years. And it looks finally like a seat that I would love to fly. I mean, like, it's nothing, honestly, totally different from what we've experienced, Alex. The one thing that is really staggering, they have a super throne seat. So the layout is very bizarre, but that creates one seat every 2 row in the middle. What has like these huge wings on each side where you can, I think you could hold like a dinner table or something. It's
I love it. I love those. I love those. You do. I mean, the throne seat is such the perfect way to describe it, because you do feel like royalty when you're sitting on it. No one else is anywhere near you. You've got one seat in the space that is really designed for two. So cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it's of course you lack the window because these are like center row seats, but we said that for the virtual windows and Emirates. This is, and United, which I flew on the 767. There are a few instances when I would try a middle row to have that kind of experience. And this, I'm on board. If in 2 years I get a chance to fly a 777-9 with Lufthansa in business class, I will try to have that seat because it looks really cool. Talking about seats, the big uproar in the UK. Let's do a little bit of the UK. The no recline seats are going to be introduced by British Airways, mostly on short haul, obviously, Recaro seats. If you guys ever flown on EasyJet, all the newest EasyJets have that. I think actually our friend Eric at the Husband Into on Twitter just flew a brand new EasyJet. He tweeting us I think a few days ago. He must have had those seats. So these are seats that are very thin, and there's a preset angle. Myself, I'm tall, as you know, guys. I like those seats. I flew EasyJet a few times with those seats. I like those seats. Me too. I get it why people are upset, because it feels like the recline is yet another of your freedom to be taken away.
This is one of those ones where I actually side with BA. I think they've made a sensible choice here, because they're preserving the seat pitch. The seat pitch actually increases ever so slightly by doing this. And I think the passenger experience is better because, as you say, you are slightly reclined. Those EasyJet seats are very, very good. You wouldn't want to do it for 10 hours, but they are fine. And honestly, if you recline your seat in economy short haul, you're just a dick anyway. That's just not cool.
I don't know. I had a discussion with, and sorry, whoever I had a discussion with about that on Twitter. Was it my friend Gianfranco? I don't remember. Anyway, I'm a tall, so of course I hate when someone reclines on me. But the seats are actually pretty comfortable. You're not like a 90% angle or something. You are already pre-reclined a little bit, and it's good. I really enjoyed. When I first did that EasyJet flight 2 years ago with these, I think the Recaro is the seat maker. I was like, wow, there's no recline, but I don't care, because it was a 2-hour flight or 2.5 hours. It was okay. And I'm like you, I'm totally siding with BA on this. I think the reaction is more about, people feel that they have less agency or something.
I think I like it. I think it's going to put an end to the few. I mean, no, that's exactly the word. It's different if you're doing a transcon red eye in the US and you want to get just a little tiny bit of sleep, and everybody's going to recline their seat. That's fine. But on a flight from London to Geneva, or London to St. Petersburg or whatever, you suck it up. You're going to be more comfortable. Everybody on the flight is going to be more comfortable with this new configuration.
I also say get used to it, because for me that's a trend. Having moving parts in an aircraft, that's something that breaks. It's great for also and I get it, for airlines to say, we have seats that don't move because they cannot break, and then we don't have problems. So it's going to get used to it, because that's going to happen anyway.
No, absolutely.
I think all the airlines are going to get there. Talking about EasyJet, we called it so many times, Alex. They are introducing streaming Wi-Fi, so IFU streaming. This was written on the wall somewhere. It has so
much sense. I mean, I've been raving about Southwest doing it, the low-cost carrier, for years, and it's such a great experience. I love it. And it seems a lot more American Airlines. Will was telling me this offline, that a lot of the US airlines are doing IFE and stream to device. And there's been a lot written in the aviation press that this is the way forward, that airlines want to reduce weight and cost and maintenance issues by moving to this stream to the device model, especially for short-ish haul, if not long haul as well. I think that works well in economy or single class configurations, less so in premium. But for EasyJet to do it, I might actually consider going on EasyJet again after several poor experiences with them.
I have a soft spot. I don't know why for EasyJet. So the name is pretty cool. The name of the system is called Airtime.
Clever.
Duh. And they have an ad, so people are on the fence about it, but they use a lot of celebrity lookalikes in the ad. It's pretty cool. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's on YouTube. I think it's a good idea. It's revenue because I don't know the pricing. I don't know if it was announced. I couldn't find it. It's not announced yet, but they will have some kind of pricing link to it. I remember I was telling you I was flying United, and they had IFE screens in front of the seats. I was in business class. But you could have also streaming movies. And I remember I told you that the catalog was huge compared to what I had in front of me. And I was like, you know what? I have the large iPad Pro, so the quality of the screen is probably better than the one I see in front of me. So the only thing I would miss, Alex, and I don't know if you have, because I don't think you're traveling with an iPad, but is I need to find something. So that's another call after the pizza in the lounge in Europe. What do you guys use if you have an iPad? Do you use any type of mechanism to hold it to the seat in front of you, to the tray table? Do you use anything, or you simply use a cover from Apple? Or if you have any Surface and others, I would really be interested because that's the only thing. Sometimes I cannot find a nice angle to watch.
I think there are a few products out there that handle that, but I don't know how gracefully they do it. That's a good point, actually. The only thing I don't know about EasyJet is, are they offering any kind of air-to-ground connectivity, or is it just streaming Wi-Fi? There's a technology investment in there, isn't there? Because you could have a Wi-Fi network in the airplane to stream from a server that sits in the gadget bay, versus having to put the air-to-ground or air-to-satellite antennas on there. So it'll be interesting to see. I will definitely try EasyJet again, so I can experience this. I don't know how quickly they're going to roll it out.
Me neither. By the way, that just reminds me, that was also before Christmas. Do you remember the plane that caught fire in the Qatar Airways aircraft?
That was bad.
Oh my God.
That was bad.
I mean, it was on the ground. No one died. The flight was empty. It was like being on maintenance or something. But the thing really caught fire.
It was completely gutted.
Was it the antenna, the Wi-Fi antenna, or something?
I don't remember what exactly. That they were playing with, and it caught fire. And thank goodness it was on the ground and there was no one hurt.
A friend of mine, Alan, was also a loyal listener to the show, lives in Geneva, my hometown. A good friend of mine, hi Alan, was when I put the news about that on our Facebook page. Look for Layovers on Facebook and you'll find us, guys. And he basically replied that reminded him of Swissair 111.
That was
crashed
terrible.
Because probably of the IFE or some cables caught fire. Yeah. Like you say, if that had happened during a flight, I don't know if it was a sequence of events, the fire was put out, but ouch, because the images are coming.
Yeah, they are. They're devastating.
Let's stay a little bit in the UK. So Monarch, one of the biggest bankruptcies of airline in the UK, in the world as well, because it was a pretty big airline. Two news linked to that. First, it's a bit of an irony, but you said, rightly so, that one of the big pressure that Monarch had, besides the fact that they had been like terrorist attacks in their usual destinations that hit their bottom line, was from BA. That's BA actually getting all the landing slots.
Yeah. Surprise. Are you surprised at all that this was the outcome?
I'm a bit saddened because, we like competition, and here is not to say against BA, but I would have liked some of these slots to being given to other airlines, whether even if it's EasyJet or Ryanair or whoever else. Maybe they were not interested, but I mean, as a British Airways flyer, it is good because it's opening up a lot of routes potentially at Gatwick, or at least some increase in frequencies. But I'm with you. I think that BA needs a challenger, and they need it soon. The other interesting link with Monarch is that's a debate we've been having, a discussion we've been having many times, Alex, about the pilot shortage. And of course, suddenly Monarch goes bankrupt, and that liberated, that's maybe not the right choice of word, a lot of pilots. Can you think where they all going?
I have no idea.
Apparently, it's Norwegian.
Well, that was O'Leary's complaint, wasn't it? When they had all of their pilot shortage issues, that Norwegian was poaching all of Ryanair's pilots. So I don't know what Norwegian is doing to attract them. Obviously, paying them more. There must be some compelling reason, or perhaps giving them more seniority. But I'm glad that Norwegian is expanding.
Similar story with the pilots from Air Berlin. A lot of them are going to Norwegian. Willie Walsh from IAGBA says that the pilot shortage doesn't exist. So I don't know what world he's actually living.
Why would he? I don't understand why he would say that. I think hasn't it been quantifiably proven that there's a...
I think he wants to be dismissive towards the low cost, the ones I just mentioned, especially Norwegian, right?
Oh, yeah,
because,
sure. It's a veiled thing to say there's only a pilot shortage if you're not paying your pilots properly.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The other outcome of that Air Berlin disaster is Nikki. So who's buying Nikki?
Well, I was hoping that it was going to be the chap that the airline is named after, Formula One driver Niki Lauda, but it's not him. Sadly, he didn't win the bidding war, and actually, I don't know who got it.
IAG.
Come on, really?
So it was set in stone, and it's not anymore because there's a welcome to Europe where supposedly everything is integrated. Germany and Austria are fighting over which judge has the authority of the bankruptcy proceedings, because they say Nikki was based in Austria. Yeah, but most of the debt is based in Germany. So the bidding war had been won by IAG. So it's Vueling that is buying them. I guess Nikki would be folded into Vueling. And I read just before we started recording that this is happening. IAG says they're confident. Who wanted it? Lufthansa. Yeah. But Lufthansa just basically got everything from Air Berlin. Lufthansa, if you just think about Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, they would have basically held the entire market on their own.
I can see why that would have come under a lot of scrutiny. But again, I'm sad because it'll disappear. It'll become Vueling. And I think that's Vueling, that's sad. I think, speaking of Air Berlin, I stumbled across their corporate auction. Jason Rabinowitz, he tweeted out the link, and you could buy rows of business class seats and bags of lanyards or blankets or, the trolleys and 1/5 scale 737 model. You could buy it all. You had to go to Essen to get it, but it's everywhere.
If ever Alex and I transform this podcast into something video, even if it's just the two of us sat on a chair and chatting, for sure, we will buy airplane seats.
100%.
That's for sure. So it's only 20 million. It's not, only 20 million. It's not a spare change for me, but 20 million, it seems like not too expensive for Vueling to buy.
I don't know how much debt there was and what they're taking on in terms of that, but you're right. That's not a lot for an airline.
And I'm not sure, continuing on that discussion about competition in Europe, how Lufthansa thinks they will have Alitalia. So the rumor is that the Alitalia bankruptcy proceedings, the judge is about to give Alitalia to Lufthansa. How does that work in a world where there's no... Meridiana now, they have 10 aircrafts, come on. But how does that work? They already have Air Dolomiti and they will have Alitalia. So that's another... and here it's nothing to say against Lufthansa.
Definitely feels like a land grab at the moment for the big European airlines. And I think that Air France and KLM are the ones that are getting left behind. But Italy will be a very interesting battleground in the next 2 years, I think, because you've got, Alitalia going to a new home, their new owners at least. And then, of course, Meridiana being fully owned by Qatar?
I don't know if it's fully owned, no, because they're
certainly a substantial, and they're
because it's a non-EU, so it's 49%. I think
they're going to invest a ton of money into it. They want to turn it into another proper flag carrier. They're upgrading their very old fleet and all that, so it can only be good for the traveling Italian public. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I agree. Quick news since we're on that, since just Alitalia. Etihad has finally a new CEO, so Etihad Aviation, because they always had Etihad had a CEO all along. He's a Swiss guy, actually, a Baumgartner or something. But they just named Tony Douglas as the chief exec for Etihad Aviation Group. So we'll see. I hope that he's able to do. Yeah, tough one here. Let's finish with, because I absolutely wanted to talk about this. Still in the UK, nothing to do with competition, but a bit. And I want to thank Jessica for actually sending us the news, because otherwise it would have flown over me. We have a lot of issues here in London to have a third runway at Heathrow. We were supposed to have it, and then suddenly the government says we're going to redo another study. So we're still up in the air. We don't know if it's going to happen or not. Can you guess, Alex, maybe you've read it, I don't know. Can you guess how many people complain about the noise for Heathrow?
I have no idea.
They received, in the final 3 months of 2017, more than 15,000 complaints, which is quite a lot, actually. But these complaints emanated only for 500 people. And, hold on. 10 people are responsible for 75% of the number I've just given you before. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
In SLAW, on the other side, your SLAW is usually when you land, because it's more west than Heathrow, guys. 10 residents clocked 6,000 complaints to themselves in 3 months. So, meaning, here is not to, point finger at everyone, just to say that sometimes when we hear the debate about noise, and remember, guys, I used to live under the pathway of landing pathway, now I live under the departing pathways, and I never complain, by the way. Of course, I love planes, but still, meaning you have to take these numbers by a grain of salt. And I went back and I looked what happens in the US. LAX, I think that was a number from 2016. 3 callers, so 3 people made up 90% of the complaints for LAX noise. At the Reagan International in DC, 2 individuals made up for 80% of the complaints. And in Denver, one person in Denver airport, one person who lives actually 30 miles away from Denver airport, 75% of the complaints in 2015 was from that single person. Here, again, not to dismiss the complaints about noise, but I just found these numbers staggering. In the debate, we need to address that there are some people and probably fed up with the noise, and I get it. But
they're that's their sport. That's their hobby.
By the way, Heathrow's noise has decreased 15% during the last 10 years. Anyway,
I love it.
One of the best landings that, I look at the window and I look outside was landing at Copenhagen Airport in the middle of the winter, but there was a lot of snow, and it was a fantastic landing. So I'm going to let you, because you've been to Copenhagen Airport recently. You've just released, we're recording today, 17th of January, Wednesday, just released, I think it was yesterday, the new episode from Attaché in Copenhagen. And then people will also understand the link with Andrew. Please tell us all about
Thank you. Yeah, we put it out yesterday. It was a fun episode to film for a few reasons. One, Copenhagen is a wonderful, beautiful city full of great food and friendly people. But my brother Andrew came along because he's wanted to come on an attaché shoot since we started. And of course, he had cancer for 2 years. He was battling cancer and is finally in remission, which is great news. But he came with us on this shoot, and we had a grand time. And he's in the episode quite a lot. And the cheeky bugger did a little bit without my knowledge at the end. You'll have to watch the whole episode to see that, because I honestly did not know that he and Greg did this until I got the edit of the episode. So yeah, he came along and he had a stem cell transplant which saved his life, frankly, and was crucial in him overcoming his cancer. So what we're going to do with this episode, and I talk about this at the very beginning of the episode, is that all the money the episode generates from ads on YouTube, we're going to donate to the Anthony Nolan Trust, who are a charity here in the UK that do pioneering work to match stem cell donors with people that need a stem cell transplant. And he went through them, and they've been wonderful, and they're a great organization. So please check out the episode. You can just search for Copenhagen and up will pop and watch it. And we do, obviously, as we do in every single episode of Attaché, spend a lot of time talking about the airport. That's a great freaking airport. Holy hell, that's a good airport. It's like this perfect combination of form and function. Obviously, it's like beautiful Scandi style, lovely, open and airy. But, you go from plane to tarmac in like 4 minutes. It's intelligently designed. And then to get from the airport to Copenhagen Central Station on the train is 12 minutes. 12 minutes. That's so civilized.
Right?
And then the metro, which is not much longer than that. It's just a joy to go in and out of that airport. Really, really is.
You know what? It's interesting because I've never experienced the airport as a destination. I've only done layovers. The last time I was in Copenhagen, I went with the train, believe it or not.
Cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was a super long journey. One of these journeys that is for 15, 20 hours or something. It was amazing. But I've never actually used the airport. So was it easy to not only, of course, navigate again, in terms of design, I trust Scandinavian countries with my eye closed. Like you go to Helsinki, Oslo, Copenhagen, you go to Bergen, all the airports are good. It's just is it, do you have to go early?
No, obviously it's where SAS have a lot of their flights. It's a very busy big bustling airport, but it's intelligently designed and it's very easy to navigate. They've got really good food and drink options, amenities. BA have a very good lounge that's sort of up in this rotunda almost. It only opened last year, I think. Late last year, and you get this wonderful panoramic view of the tarmac, and it's a comfortable place to spend an hour or two. But yeah, it's well laid out, it's clean, it's airy, it's light. The signposting is a little bit confusing just because the way that the airside bit is laid out, but I was impressed. I was really, really impressed. It's one of those airports that you think, not from a comfort, but just from an experience, a user experience perspective, is a joy to use.
I would also recommend it for layovers. I've done SAS, so I've never been to that BA lounge. And actually, my experience is not super recent because it was exactly 2 years ago. It was in January 2016 that I went the last time to do a layover in Copenhagen Airport. I was going from London through Copenhagen to Newark actually. And so I would just say this. Parts of the terminals, you have F gates, C gates, D gates, A gates, and there are quite a few. Parts of the airports are more welcoming than others. There's like more amenities, cafes, and the cafes are amazing. There's a lot of, it's very open spaces. You can just, sit down, have a coffee. It feels really kind of, homey is maybe an overstatement, but it feels really, really good. And it was like right in the middle of winter, was snowing, de-icing was not a problem like in the US or in Europe. And so there are some disconvoluted parts, especially when you go to the US, because we know how it is. The US has sometimes extra security, as in the part where the US flights were departing back then. I don't know if that changed, where there was a bit of nothing. So I wanted to go to the SAS lounge. So they have a lounge, which is Star Alliance. The lounge is probably the less good of the SAS lounge I've done. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just that when you see, if any one of you guys has been to the lounge at SAS at Oslo, which feels like a home, like they have couches and small sofas and like coffee areas, that's very different. Anyway, good for layovers. It's a great
airport, great city. I always forget how close it is to London. It's just over an hour's flight. I need to spend more time there.
The only thing is that, guys, it's like a lot of it in Northern Europe, it's quite expensive, but it's worth it.
God, yes.
Anyway, Alex, let's not do the next flights because we just said earlier that there's not going to be Airlux until we probably record next. Also, I know that you have to go. The recording will sharply end. So, guys, please hail the return of Alex Hunter to our show. And good luck with your family, Alex. And
Thank you. Safe travels.